What do we mean by fluency? Well, fluency is defined as being able to speak and write quickly or easily in a given language. Fluency in a language means speaking easily, reasonably quickly, and without having to stop and pause a lot. Becoming fluent in a language can take many years. In this episode, we're going to discuss some ways that students can become fluent readers. Welcome to episode 129 of the Teacher Rockstar podcast, a place where tips and strategies critical to the new teacher are discussed. I'm your host, Steve Hiles, and in today's episode, I want to talk about some strategies for fluency. But before we dive right into today's topic, I want to ask you a question. Are you a brand new teacher just fresh out of college, or is this your first year of teaching? Well, if so, would you like to supercharge your classroom management skills? Are you interested in having somebody with you every step of the way to guide and assist you? Well, stay to the end of this episode and I will provide you with a link to learn how you can. Okay, let's dive right in. I'm going to be sharing with you 10 strategies for creating fluency. Number one, teachers will benefit by listening to the student read aloud. I mean, I know that probably sounds like common horse sense, but really it is. Now, to prevent putting the student on the spot or, in fact, embarrassing them, it probably would be best to hear the student read with just you, okay, and them. Record students reading aloud on their own so that you could analyze later in order to provide some really targeted help. Number two, encourage children to use a ruler or some type of straight edge to follow along with the text. Students will find it much easier to decode words when they don't lose their place as they move across the page. Some students may want to use a pencil or a sheet of paper, and that's fine, to track their reading and as they move down to cover the bottom of the page and stay focused on the sentence that's in front of them. Now, this strategy will also help children with ADHD as this involves a kinesthetic component. Strategy 3. When trying to improve fluency, it's best to have the student read the same text over and over and over again several times. The student's motivation will go up as they read, as each reading becomes easier to read. Now, this will help when developing comprehension skills, as readers will have more opportunities to notice contextual clues. Strategy 4. What will prove very helpful is to pre-teach vocabulary that the student will see in their reading and practice reading the words in isolation or in phrases. Crossword puzzles can be a very effective teaching tool, or playing a spelling game. Strategy number 5, drill sight words. I can't emphasize that enough. Some words are more common than others, okay? And students with fluency difficulties will find it much, much easier to read when they are familiar with 90% of the vocabulary in the text, okay? Approximately 50%, now this is very important here, 50% of all classroom materials for young readers are comprised of words from the Dolch list, okay? Strategy number 6, make use of a variety of books and materials. For students with reading difficulties, it's even more of a struggle to get kids to read when they are not interested to even reading them. It would be helpful to try chapter books, comics, poetry to pique their interest. It would be a good idea to experiment with different genres, lengths of books, or shorter material. The primary goal when it comes to fluency is to emphasize the quality of the student's reading as opposed to the quantity of pages read or the speed at which they read. Okay, very important consideration. Strategy number 7. Another helpful tip might be to try different fonts and text sizes, particularly if you have a student whose vision is impaired. There are specific fonts which are more appropriate for kids with learning difficulties, including dyslexia. This brings us to strategy 8. Create a stress-free learning environment. It goes without saying that when students are enjoying a book, their anxiety and stress levels are greatly reduced. Also, the teacher can foster a relaxing atmosphere by removing deadlines or assessment-related goals and just read for the sake of reading. Strategy 9. Help students establish a steady pace. One of the factors about fluent reading is establishing a consistent rhythm and pace that guides a student through the text. An important point here is that fluent reading is not fast reading. It should sound conversational. And the last strategy, Should you have a student who continues to struggle with fluency, consider introducing a typing course. For example, a multi-sensory course like Touch, Type, Read, and Spell can enhance spelling and sight reading all at the same time. Also, there's an audio component that accompanies letters on the screen while students type the corresponding keys, which I find works really, really well. Well, my friend, this brings us to the end of this episode. Do you remember at the beginning of the show, I said if you'd like to supercharge your classroom management skills, I would provide you with a link to learn more? Well, here it is. Go to tra.teacherclassroomresources.com. That's tra.teacherclassroomresources.com. I want to thank you for listening to the Teacher Rockstar podcast. I'm your host, Steve Hiles. When you get a moment, visit my blog and subscribe to my newsletter for the latest educational research, best practices, and unadvertised free bonuses. Go to blog.teacherclassroomresources.com. And don't forget to subscribe to us at the Teacher Rockstar Podcast. And if you'd like to support us, please feel free to share our podcast with others. Post about it on social media. Leave a rating and review. That would be greatly appreciated. Thanks again. We'll see you same time, same place next week. And remember, my friend, you got this.